The Atomic Real Estate Show, bringing you the real estate of real estate. Brought to you by Danny Bennett Productions in partnership with Direct Subs.
Today we're filming this episode at 225 Northwestern Ave, which is a 6-bed, 7.5 bath home listed for $2.8 million. This home was graciously allowed us to film here, and it is listed by Keith Adams with the Adams Group.
Hi, everyone. We're back again with another episode of the Atomic Real Estate Show. I'm Ryan Dolan with My City Lending, and on behalf of our colleague here, Nick Cessna from Cessna Construction Services, we have an awesome guest today. Everybody just got out of tax season. It is financial planning time. So we have Betsy Madonna here from Madonna Management, and she's a financial planner, and we're going to learn everything there is to where to put your assets and how to plan. So Betsy, thank you for coming out here. And Nick, thanks for having us at this awesome place. We are at a 6-bedroom, 7.5 bathroom home on Northwestern Ave, right on the border of Philadelphia and Chestnut Hill, listed at $2.8 million. You got to see this place. It's incredible. But pivoting on to Betsy here. So Betsy, tell us a little bit about your business, what you do, and how long you've been doing it.
Hi, thanks for having me, guys. This is a first for me. I am a financial planner, financial advisor, however you'd like to say it. So I generally manage people's money, right? Whether it be your IRAs, you had old jobs, you have some old 401ks, 403bs, you need to organize them. Kids accounts, 529s, custodials, some insurance. I do a lot of the planning. And then also on the other side, which I just started in 2020, I do consultations for people. Maybe you're in your 30s or 40s, or you just started to have kids. You may not have investable assets. They're tied up in retirement or so, but you want to have an hour or two with an advisor and creating an environment that is comfortable to ask all the questions, to figure out, what am I supposed to be doing? Am I doing the right thing? What is out there that I can be investing in that makes sense for my needs and my wants and, what our family needs. So there's kind of two parts of it, the consultation side, and then, of course, the main side for a lot of advisors like myself that are fiduciaries, which is managing people's money.
So this is the fiduciary stuff. So we're taking this ground level because our listeners want to know, they start hearing these words, fiduciary, financial planning, and they start kind of maybe even tuning out or saying, this is just too big for my britches. Like, let's start from kind of the beginning steps. Like, somebody has a little bit of money. They're, just got married. They want to buy a house. Like, what's the step? Like, who calls who? How do you get in touch with your clients? Like, what works to get to Betsy?
To get to me, a lot of people feel as though they need $250,000.
Big misconception, right? Like they
advisor.
don't, there's no real technically an entry point, right?
Some advisors have minimums, some do not.
So people think it's only for rich people, and it's not.
Right. No, it's not. Not at all. And some advisors are only for the rich, right? But I got in this business because I love making this complex world really easy for people to understand. Yeah. I don't want to ever have a client come in. You're never going to come into my office and me use this jargon that you have no idea what I'm talking about, and then you don't even know the questions to ask, and then you're embarrassed, and then you leave. And you sign something, you have no idea what you did, which is the norm. Sure. So I try to create an environment where I want people to understand how money works, right? We weren't taught, a lot of us, because our parents weren't taught. And I went to 12 years of Catholic school, so I didn't have how money works or Money 101 class to take. So that's my first thing. I want you to know how it works, how to invest, your options. Everyone has different needs and wants. Some people have priorities over others. Some people want to have their house paid off when they're 50. Others are like, YOLO, I want the country club membership. I want a house at the shore. How do I get all this done with being able to retire? So everyone's different.
See, that's pretty cool, right?
His ears just perked up when you said country club.
Yeah, right.
Want to be Tiger Woods.
I've been not investing my money correctly, but all right, so that's great. So, like, when do you think this conversation start? Is it in your late teens, early 20s, whenever you get some money and inheritance? Like, when's the good time to pick up the phone? Because I know there's a lot of people, and you know the same people I do, that work in all different industries. A lot cash heavy, some very commission based heavy. Like when is a good time to say, all right, our house is squared away. We have the basics, right? The 401k, all the stuff that everybody normally has. Now we got to level up. Let's call Betsy.
In some cases, it's actually when you get your first job. You know, people sign up for their 401k and they don't even realize, oh, what is this Roth 401k option? How's that different from your pre-tax? Some people are fortunate enough where they have a mom and dad that are like, let's log you in, start heavy, right? Start contributing more so that you're not used to it in your pocket. Others don't have that kind of parent relationship or someone who knows enough to tell them. And a lot of times employers will be able to help them, but it's not something a lot of people are interested in. They want to sign up for their, they get their health insurance and they just want to click, click, click and move on. And they're excited to start their job.
If the company matches,
right.
We'll max it out. And then that's it. Kind of set it, forget it.
If you're working at a job and they have a retirement plan, a 401k, and other things that are available, which I'm sure you'll touch with, most of those things are transferable. They're yours. Some people, I think, have the mindset of like, I worked there, but I quit. So, that's theirs. And that's not the case. It's the person, it's the employees. That's their money. And a lot of people don't even realize that they have this stuff just sitting there, and then they get paperwork and they're like, oh, this is from an old job, and they just throw it away. But it's your money. Yeah. And you can roll that into, you can have 10 jobs. There's a big popularity now where people are no longer staying with companies for long periods of time. Like my brother, for instance, gets headhunted like every few years. And
LOs all the time. Lenders all the time.
So he just takes his stuff and just rolls it and compiles it. And he has like his own advisor like yourself that he works with instead of just a company's.
Do you keep an eye on that? Like if someone that is in your book of business or in your network, if they're kind of transitioning jobs and they've been there, say, a decade and they have a nice retirement account saved up, that's probably a client you want to get to pretty quickly, right? Because they don't know what to do with that, or they could leave it there and set it and forget it. But of course, you want to grab that and put it in your book of business. Well,
as their advisor, my fingers are on the pulse all the time, meaning we're always in constant communication. People don't come to me to do a transaction. They come to me because they want a full relationship with me. So I'm one of the first people they tell when they get a new job. So it's not, oh, let's grab that 401k and roll it into an IRA and let me manage it. It's, okay, here are your options. You can leave it there. Here are the pros and cons. You can move it into your new 401k. Here are the pros and cons. Or you can put it into an IRA. I'll manage it for you. And here are the reasons why you should or why you shouldn't do it.
Okay. So at this time, you already have a pre-existing relationship set up with this client just because that's the body of that's what you guys have to do anyway. It's gaining the trust, then just having the discussion, the consultation about it. And then when these pieces start falling in place, that's when you have your pulse on it, like you said. So kind of, hey, this is this client's goal. They have this. And that's kind of how you game plan for something like that? Okay, cool.
And honestly, we think that our life is so simple, especially when we're growing, we're in the growth phase, right? We're not retiring, so why do we need a financial planner? So many things happen. We have kids, we change jobs, right? Our income goes up. How many people get pay raises and then they never get to reap the benefits? They never have, if you have an advisor like me, you let me know, oh, I got a pay raise, I've got like an extra $1,000 a month to play with. Awesome, let's increase your auto draft monthly or bi-monthly to your 529 for your kid, to your brokerage account with your husband, to this, let's go into your 401k, let's try to max out. So a lot of times people will do their taxes and they're like, how did we make this much money and we have nothing to show for it? That's the average, couple in their 30s and 40s. They feel like they've made all this money, they have nothing to show for it.
All right, so then this is perfect. Right on the heels of tax day then, because that's probably the conversation that most people woke up to this week. Like, how the heck are we making X amount of money and we have no disposable income? Like, what's the story there? Because obviously, we're in this inflationary period where the cost of goods and services, everything is way up, right? And the living wages are not really catching up with them. So, this is a conversation, again, that's prevalent this week. It's like, okay, we're making $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 as a joint, as a family. Where the hell's all the money? So What do you say to those kind of people first? Like, because don't they have to reset kind of their plan, or is that just that's the entryway to make a call? Like,
it really is.
That should be it, right? Like
It
Tuesday
is.
the 16th, I'm calling Betsy because I'm making too much money, but I have nothing to show for it.
The only roadblock that these people have is the time, is to actually prioritize it. And when they get on the phone with me, I have a calendar invite just for a 15-minute intro. I let them know that you just need to give me an hour. You need to sit down with me via Zoom or in person for an hour with your spouse. And after that hour, it will be a well-oiled machine. We'll set all the things up. It's very easy, especially these days, it's DocuSign. Yeah. But if you get the account set up, you're so much more inclined to save more when you make money, when you get a tax, when you get some money back for taxes, than you would if you're like, oh, I still haven't even had that intro call yet. So even if you don't have the money per se, it is important to have that consultation to go from A to Z. And then okay, I've opened it up. I can only do 100 a month. But wow, now my husband got a job. He was out of work. Now he's got a job. It's already set up. So all I have to do is email or call Betsy and have her draft.
It's a little snowball effect. You keep getting a little momentum each time.
Yeah.
And it's not going to happen overnight like in anything, right? So you're going to start off small. Now, the reluctant part of that is people are probably nervous and scared to call an advisor, right? I have this conversation with my clients all the time when we close. I said, all right, well, what's the next step? You're married, you're having your children, you're sending them to school. What is your next step? And you'd be surprised, about 90% of them said, well, we're here. We got everything we want. I said, well, you're just getting started. So we try to pivot and always send our clients to financial advisors such as yourself, because now we're just getting started. We want them to buy investment properties. I mean, that's my job, right? So we want them to level up, and we want them to give the estate to the kids and things like that. So that's the first conversation after a closing for me. It's, well, here goes all the people that can help you with your actual home itself. Here's all the people that can help you with your money. So,
that's why I wanted to have Betsy on. And when I called her, she's like, Nick, she's like, I'm flattered, but I don't really have anything to do with real estate. And I'm like, yeah, but hold on, Bets, because you're a financial planner. You're super easy to talk to. Sure. You're non-threatening. You don't have like this aggressive personality. She's very, very easy to speak to, and she's knowledgeable and well-spoken. And I said, so many real estate investors and realtors don't realize that they should be financially planning, and they need an expert. We hire real estate professionals for their expertise. They are not experts in finances. You are the expert in how to handle people's finances, and they need to know that they need to approach people like you and hire a professional. Like we, as home sellers and home buyers, are reaching out to realtors as their experts and for their expertise. People need to do that with you. And I thought you were a great person to bring on here because you grew up in a neighborhood that we did, and we grew up with similar type families where, I grew up where the savings from my dad's idea of a retirement account was 30 grand in a freezer bag. Like that's the house that I grew up in, right? And my mom had a regular job. She's a nurse, and she was like, what is wrong with this dude? 50 G's in a shoebox in the yard isn't really savings. And so I had like these two different human beings with mindsets. And now I want to educate my kids on what to do. And I've been educating myself on what to do by talking to professionals like yourself. And that's why you were like, oh, my job's boring. This is boring stuff. I'm like, yeah, but you're such an expert at it that you can explain it, and you can explain things to a caveman like myself. Like, and I can understand it. Like our listeners are definitely going to understand it. And that's what I think they're going to get a lot out of that, because they just need to hire people. They need to hire an expert like yourself.
Well, dude, in your world, you guys are all cash, right? So think about some of these other investors. They make a big sale. They do a flip. They have $250,000. What are they doing? Who are they talking to with that? Just other developers? Or are they talking?
Most of the time in my business, you're looking at it like, all right, I just got $250,000. What am I putting it into next on the next project? Well, I think that we need to stop, take a step back, and then start putting a portion of that away into things. Like I put stuff in for my kids. I have things in place that if I die tomorrow, my wife can handle things. And there's things in place for that with, life insurance policies, term and whole and all that. And your first couple years in real estate as an investor, if you are going to then just roll money, fine. Once you reach a certain point, a few years in, you're doing this now.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't you want to start pulling
So
back
I feel
a
like
little?
then you need to, all right, now I got to put it in different buckets. Same thing with realtors. I believe that, because their funds go like this, realtors. Their income is it's chicken and feathers. One day you're eating chicken, the next day you're eating feathers. So I feel as though realtors need to find a base where they can do that. And that's something I would like for you to touch on, where people that don't have a constant stream of income, you have X coming in, we need to put A, B, and C away. What about the realtors who 1 month they're killing it and the next month there's nothing? How do you deal with people like that where they have this varying degree of income? Same with a loan officer.
Yep,
Yeah, I mean, it's
yep.
the same
I was
thing,
going to
yeah.
say the same exact thing as a loan officer. I have had this situation, and it is tough because there's a lot of type A individuals in those fields where they are running, and it's hard
That
to
was the
kind
most
of
polite way
pull them
you've
in,
ever put it.
right? It's hard to pull my realtors in and my mortgage loaners in and lenders in and say,
entrepreneurs.
right, and say, hey, I need a second. What I tell these people to do is open the accounts and start minimum. You have to auto draft. It makes no difference to me whether you auto draft every month, right? You pull from your checking into your investment account, into your IRA with me, whatever it may be. But it makes a huge difference because now you've started with a base. Let's say you do $100 a month. So it doesn't matter what you make. You can do everybody has a minimum, right? Let's say it's $500 a month, $6,000 a year, whatever it may be. Then you meet with your accountant and your accountant says, hey, save yourself on a little taxes, throw $6,000 more to your IRA instead of, hey, write a check for $12,000, right? You already were doing monthly, you do a minimum of what you can afford, whether you have a fantastic month or a horrible month. What's your worst month? That's where we start with. What's your worst month? Let's start an auto draft of that. And then when you meet with your accountant, you'll probably have to write a sizable check, if you can, to your retirement account because it's less. What would you rather do? Write a check to yourself into your retirement or write that same check to Uncle Sam? And sometimes it's that.
That's a
Well,
thing.
Nick would probably want to pay Uncle Sam. I'm
No,
sure.
I've given that son of a bitch enough time in my life. So that's a conversation that my advisor and my accountant, I had to hook them up together because there were certain years where things were taking off, and my accountant's like, this is going to be your tax burden. Well, let me talk to your financial advisor. And then my financial advisor was nonstop peppering me before that. Let me talk to your accountant. Because then you have these tax deductions and you have stuff. So instead of paying Uncle Sam, why am I going to pay Uncle Sam when I can pay into something that's going to help my future? Like, no offense, but fuck Uncle Sam. Like, seriously, I've given this motherfucker too much in my life. So I want to try
You
to
have all the proper documentation set up for this show?
Yeah, right. So it's all legal. It's all above the board. Instead of giving it to Uncle Sam, I'm gonna put it into another vessel, and it's gonna help me.
Yes.
Instead of helping some politician, run for office and propose like a new bridge in Erie, PA. Like, I don't give a shit about that.
Yep. And if you have a good advisor and you have a good accountant, I don't mean the accountant who charges $400 to do your taxes. I mean
Like
one
a real
that's
comprehensive
a real,
accountant.
yeah.
That doesn't hear from you March or April 14th.
Yes.
He hears from you throughout the year, throughout the quarters.
Yes. And that's okay for if you're W-2'd and your spouse is W-2'd, pay somebody $400 to do your taxes. But with you two or realtors or people with investment properties, if you have a good accountant, they will let you know, hey, if you contribute to a 529, it's state tax deductible. If you max out your SEP IRA, I know I'm talking a lot of jargon that I said.
This.
If you max out your SEP IRA, which is for, business owners, if you max out your 401k, that is all federally tax deductible. Meaning, If you make 200 grand and you put 10 grand in your 401k, now you've made 190 right off the top. Now that's you're basing it off of. If you and your spouse make 200 combined and you're both maxing out, let's say 23 each into a 401k, that's 46 grand off of your taxable income. That's your starting point. So I am not a CPA, I'm not an accountant, I have to say that. But that is why it's important when you're a business owner or when you have variable income and you're in sales.
You work closely with accountants, tax accountants and personal accountants, similar to the relationships of realtors and loan officers. They make each other's job progress to the next level and they help their clients out. It's very similar to you and an accountant. You guys team up and make the client's life a lot better.
Yep.
Well, how about this then? Since we're on a real estate show, right? What about loan officers and real estate agents? Because I'm sure, like we mentioned, some real estate agents are waking up today breathing fire, right? They just had to do their taxes. Half of them, they said 88% of them are on the hook to do their own tax work, right? So, and some of them don't even realize that they have to pay these taxes. They thought either their company did, they weren't advised by their mentor, or had no mentor. Today, I'm sure you have real estate professionals that are clients of yours. Do they call you kind of in a panic after things like this, or you have them probably set up?
We have them set up, and honestly, what I've seen is, unfortunately, people
poor planning.
Yes, but also poor planning, meaning. And this is I don't mean to judge this at all, because I could probably be doing this as well. When you have great years, you're told you got to live. If you make 500 grand as a realtor, right, you should live off of 200. If you're not gonna always make 500 grand a year, right, or $1.5 million or whatever it may be. So
Let's
start
be honest,
to buy.
Most people don't do that.
I know three people at this table aren't doing that.
And yeah, me too. So you live this lifestyle based off of your highest income year. And then all of a sudden, in a year like 2024, I see people pulling out of their retirement because they're desperate. Pulling out of your retirement pre-59 and a half, meaning 59 years old, means you're paying income tax on it. So if whatever tax bracket you're in, let's say you're lucky and you're in 22 or 24%, that's coming off the top of that withdrawal. 10% penalty on top of that. Now you're at 34%, right? And then this is the kicker that people don't realize. When you take money out of your retirement before you're 59 and a half years old and post, it counts as income. So if you have to take a $100,000 withdrawal, now you made an extra 100 grand. That's on your taxable income. That can bring you back up to now the 36% tax bracket. So there's a lot of mistakes that can be made in there. Hey, desperate times, desperate measures. There's never, ever any judgment on my side. I try to give them solutions and other options before they ever touch that, because I never want to see people pull 100,000 and actually end up with 50, because like you just said about Uncle Sam, that all goes to them.
You're lighting money on fire, right?
Sick.
Yeah.
It makes you sick when
but
you
I
have
think
to
what
see
if people
that.
think at the very least, oh, I have some savings, so I may as well use it. But there's got to be other avenues, like you mentioned. Like, all right, so say somebody comes to you and they're going to pull a move like that, right? What are some of the kind of options you look at? And I know every case is different, but what's kind of like the options you look at? Like, instead of liquidating this, why don't we take a look at this?
Well, any loans that are lower than 10%, of course, whether it's home equity, whether it's a personal loan. We also talk about whether they have a spouse who works like as a nurse or in the corporate world. Maybe they have a 401k that they can take a loan off of. The interest on a loan on a 401k, you're actually paying back yourself. Yeah. Those are the avenues I'd go. And
that'll, I mean, you'll yield more, keep more of your own money that way, right? But people just think they need the big check. They see the 100, yep. But what they end up getting back is significantly less. Plus, there's repercussions on the back end. To your point, like nobody thinks, hey, 100 grand is taxable income, right? Yep. So now you could be moving up and down buckets depending on what you pull.
The other thing too is you touched on where people have good years and bad years, and should they put certain things away when they're having a really good year? It also that's not just for entrepreneurs and people that are like contracted. It goes to W-2 people as well, because I take it back to when I was a union employee and I was a W-2 employee. What about all the overtime? There was years where it was unlimited overtime and you're making so much overtime. And I saw so many guys make the mistake. Then you started seeing, it went from an old F-150 that's beat up to now it's an F-350 Platinum out there in the parking lot, right? And where it was a bullshit Chevy truck, now it's a Denali, right? So guys are making all this extra money in overtime. I always thought that, back then we had a deferred comp thing along with the pension. And I thought you should maximize your deferred comp. It took me several years to start maxing my contributions to allowable contributions to deferred comp. But I should have listened from day one to a guy who was mentoring me, and I never did until it took me a little bit of time. That cost me a lot of money, not putting that stuff away. And then the overtime money, I used to see these guys, and I used to tell them, like, that overtime money is not guaranteed, guys. If you get hurt, you're not making that money anymore. That fucking Benz or that Denali truck, who's paying for that? Your normal salary really doesn't cover these upgrades of your life. Now, we were making more in overtime than our salaries. There was years where like our overtime was more money than our salary was because there's just unlimited overtime availability. You should really live off of your actual base pay, and all that overtime stuff, you should really put that into your future. Now, if you want to take your week down the shore and all that stuff, but when you're doubling your salary like we were, guys weren't putting that stuff away. And you should really go to a financial advisor at that point and be like, what do I do with this? Right. Invest in your future instead of investing in right now.
Yeah, and there's a balance there, right? I would never tell clients not to enjoy their life. There's a balance of taking some of that and saving it, and then also living your life. But the main thing is you don't have the $1,000 car loan a month. You don't make your basic bills, your house, the thing you're driving, based on your highest monthly income. And that's what I think you're talking about.
Yes, and all the guys that I worked with, a lot of them were making that mistake.
Well, think about it this way then. All right, if
and they were getting crushed with child support too. Crushed with child support because then it was based off of that
That's a
stuff.
whole other episode.
And then
based off
and then once the overtime stopped, then it was like, I can't afford
gosh.
to pay my ex-wife anymore. Well, you were kind of like, you shouldn't have been living the way you were for so long. But that's a whole other episode.
Well, so the last couple of years, then incomes have went up, and most of us have went down in that sales role. So, what say if I wanted to go ahead and liquidate my 401k? You're like, no, don't do it, right? Do I call you before I start moving money around, or do I get kind of to zero almost and then say, all right, I got to start saving some money, and then give Betsy a shout through that 100, or just pick up the phone and talk to somebody that knows what the hell they're doing, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
Before.
Because I'm getting a lot of these calls now, right? You said your business right now is booming because everybody's so conscious of what they're spending, what comes in, what goes out, right? And us all the time, it's like, well, we don't have enough money to make this payment, or we don't have enough money for a down payment for a home. So we kind of do the same thing. We coach them on what to do, what's available. And then that way you're not moving into a place where you're house poor. We're actually teeing you up to speak to a financial advisor or take on your next role, because it's not just get yourself caught until you may or may not default on your mortgage. That's not the goal. It's like we're setting these people up for the future. So with the disposable income piece, you keep saying like there's no real right reason. You like actually the smaller increments to start, right? Train yourself to do an auto draft each month instead of coming to you each year with $10,000, $15,000, which some people think they need. Like that's what a big conversation is with me. Like, hey, I don't have 15, 20 grand to talk to a financial planner. I said, you don't need one. I said, as long as you have a job and there's extra money, get started. You have to start somewhere. We all do.
You do have to start somewhere. And I get people thinking that you need a large chunk. And believe me, I have clients that are high net worth and all that. But like I said, before becoming an advisor, I was a wholesaler. So I actually taught people how money works, how investment works, how different products are different than others, right? So,
all right. So your background is in education. So where did you go? Did you go to school for financial planning? Like, what was your background there? Did you go to college? You know, what is the story to get to 15 years later to where you're at now?
I actually, you won't be surprised, but I was a music major. and a history major. I thought I was going to be a lawyer, and I knew that music wasn't going to pay me the big bucks. I wanted to always enjoy it, so I thought I was going to be a lawyer. And then when I got out of college, it was this weird time, too many lawyers, like you'll never get a job. So I waitressed and bartended. And then a couple years into it, my brother's friend was like, you got to come over here to Lincoln and Wayne. It's a lot of fun. And I was like, would I be in a cubicle? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, I'm not made for a cubicle. And he was like, just work your butt off. Don't worry about it. I'm like, I have no idea what any of this is. I didn't study finance. I didn't even do macro or micro in college. So in about a year, I was out of the cubicle, went to outside sales. So as a wholesaler, my clients were financial advisors. So I was trying to get financial advisors to sell my product instead of that guy's product or that guy's product. So I was on a flight every Monday, came home every Thursday. That was about, I was living large.
How
in my
old were you?
20s. I got that job at 21.
Pre-children? Yeah.
Yes.
Then.
I got that job at 21, had it until I was 27. And living large.
Single woman at the time?
I was dating, I met my husband when I was 21.
Okay.
But we had a long distance Delco and Philly relationship.
That
So I was basically
I love
single.
that long distance.
So I was basically single.
That's a true Philly girl right there.
That's a
relationship.
Mannion girl. Delco is long distance. It's great.
It is. And anyway, I had my first, and he was about 10 months when I had to come to Jesus. And I was like, I can't do this. I missed him walking. I missed him talking. And no amount of money, was worth it to me. So the natural next step would be, let me be an advisor. I've been literally in all these meetings. I've been running their seminars. And I understand why a lot of people don't do it. And they don't take that leap because you start at this. I mean, you're building a business from scratch. So it was
similar to realtors.
Yes.
The natural progression with the bartending and working in the hospitality industry, right? Like that's a common theme for the show. Like it seems like the natural progression for most people in this sales role or an advisory role come from that, right? Because you have to be able to chat with your clients. You have to be able to navigate when it's hot and cold, obviously, the climate of things. So how did that help you because you're all sales, right? I mean, you're on the phone, you're in person. When things ain't going great, you got to be able to pivot, right? So that probably helped you a lot, the tendon bar and things like that.
Yes. When I went for my interview, I was 21 years old at Lincoln Financial right in Wayne. And I remember being embarrassed to say that I was a bartender. And the person interviewing me was like, well, one of the reasons you got the interview was because of that.
Because of it, yeah.
Because if you're remembering everyone's orders, you're talking to this guy who is completely different than that girl and age, and you're kind of a chameleon. So it actually helped.
Which a lot of people say, like, when are you getting that real job? It's like, that's the most real world job I feel like most people can have.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, all my kids will be in that business. One, you just learn how to treat people, learn how things move. But two, again, the guy sitting next to him is completely different. One can scream at you, the other one can treat you like a queen. Right. So you got to learn how to deal with all those different personalities. And we did the same thing. Like we spoke on a couple of episodes earlier about when I got my job. I was actually tending bar, and my mentor came in and I said, well, damn, I want to kind of do that instead of tending bar. So you can do both, but it lends to that side of my world as well. It's because I can handle the personalities of people, and people that think, hey, I'm unapproachable. It's like, that's crazy. It's like, we're just buying and selling houses. Like, it's no big deal. Like, have a conversation. There's nothing else to it.
I think it also prepares you to be told no, bartender.
Yeah.
Because you learn how to deal with shitty people, right?
Oh yeah.
And people doing shitty things. And if you can deal with drunks and people that are just a bunch of Karens and assholes, I think it sets you up to be very good in sales.
Well, because you know what your risk tolerance is, right? Like, you can tell someone to F off. Someone's not treating, like, right? We all try to do the right thing, but there comes down to the human element. Like, if you treat me like shit, well, guess what? I'm probably going to reciprocate. And that was difficult, actually leaving that hospitality side of things, getting into the finance piece. They're like, well, why would I listen to you? It's like, hey, we still went to school. We still have our license. We still work our ass off. It's like, don't discount me because I came from, everybody starts somewhere.
But if you can take a hostile client in a restaurant bar business and flip their mentality and make that situation good, I feel like you can go sell something to people because you can take a no and turn it around.
Yeah, for sure.
It prepares you for that, and people don't realize that. Bartenders
I guess
really
we all
are
grew
good
up in
salesmen.
pretty hostile environments. So you have and I know your whole family. I've known you guys for a very long time. I have brothers and sisters, tons of nieces and nephews. So I'd imagine you could think pretty quickly on your feet
Oh, yeah.
And how about these last couple of years when the market has been just so extremely volatile? How do you handle that and the everyday things that you have in your life, like without losing it? How does that work? Because I know it's stressful as hell.
It is. It is. I mean, that month, those couple months, February of 2020, it was right when I was I wasn't drowning anymore building the business. I was kind of like coming up, and I'm like,
Treading
I'm
water.
almost swimming.
Yeah.
I'm like almost
Treading water,
swimming.
right?
Tidal
We have
wave.
a career, I'm actually, and then that happened. And it was like, oh man, this is what my mentor, Keith Morris, told me to be prepared for. And what he told me, which was the best advice I ever got, was call your clients before they call you. Imagine your clients in the living room watching the television, and they have, they're starting to panic, and they're in their 60s and they're in their 70s, right? And they're talking to each other. Call them and let them know, hey, market's down 20%, you're down 12. Let me show you why. This is why we chose this to buffer on the downside. Or you're talking to somebody in their 30s and you're like, market's down 20, you're down 20. Why? Because you've got 30 years until you're going to touch this money. We can have 3 more recessions and you'll still have way more than what you started with.
It's monopoly
That's
money.
why
I look at it as it's monopoly money.
It's all on paper. Unless you actually take it and pull it out, and you leave the table and you say goodnight and you go back to your room in AC, you're still invested, right? The February of April of 2020 was the best month in the market since like 1973.
So that's just 2 months
You
after,
missed
like
it.
2 months after when you thought, oh crap, this
Yep.
is not going to go well. Just shortly after,
Yes.
if you could hang through that, you started rocking again.
Well, you knew as an advisor that COVID and that time was going to be a spike. It was going to be down and fast up. You knew that from history. It wasn't like an economic issue. This was a isolated event. So as long as you stayed, you would be fine.
Now,
And
talking
then
people
some.
back from the ledge, though, there had to have been clients like losing their minds and saying, hey, I'm out, I'm pulling it all. So a big part of that job is, one, talk them back down.
Yep.
And
Talk
two,
them off the ledge,
And
right?
yeah.
because they can make an emotional reaction like that, you're going to make a financial mistake
They
that's
could
really going
they
to
could
cripple you.
really screw themselves.
That's why you have an advisor, because we make decisions based on emotion. But if you talk to an advisor like myself, my first question is, if you're going to pull out, you better tell me when you're going to get back in. Oh, you don't know when you're going to get back in? You're going to get back in May, after the best month since 1973? You missed 30%, and they're still not ready to get back in. So if you can't tell me when you're going to get back in, it's tough.
I've
But at
seen
the end of the day, it's your
charts.
money. You make the decision.
I've seen those charts that the tools that you guys use as advisors, where it shows you like the big downturn, like 07, 08, 09, like when stuff like really was kind of bad. The people that pulled their money out instead of leaving it in and letting it recover, it was staggering. I mean, I don't know the numbers offhand, but it was staggering. I just remember looking at it like, why these people pull money out? Like for what? And how much did it cost? It was staggering. You almost have to, when you're our age, you kind of just don't think about it. It's like let's talk to my advisor. Let's see what we need to be putting in. And I don't need to look at it every month because I don't want to see it go up and down. Mm-hmm. I want to make sure that my advisor has everything for me to be able to, so it's good. We're hoping that it's the best when I'm 65.
Yep. You invest your money, number one, based on your time horizon. If someone comes to me today and says, here's $100,000, I need it in 2 years, I'm probably going to use a money market. If money markets are free, liquid, safe, relatively, right, unless they start to pull interest rates down.
Just
that
kick those people to me and
interest
I'll
will
pay
come
them
down.
10%. That's all. I mean,
was
just
gonna say,
kick
Nick has
kick
a
those
better
people to
sales
me.
pitch,
You know?
yeah.
Right. But if they need it liquid to put down for a down payment on a house or something like that, why would you take the risk if you can get over 5% without taking any right now in money markets? But if you come to me and say, we've got 7 years, we've got 5 to 7, we've got 10. The longer your time horizon, the longer until you call and say, Betsy, I need all that money and I need it in my bank account, the more risk we can take. Of course, everyone has different risk tolerance. Some people are just naturally, natural worriers, right? So that also comes into effect. Age does too. But time horizon is the biggest thing. It's interesting when people have money in their 401ks, in their retirement, they're okay with taking a ton of risk. They don't care. They're like, oh yeah, it comes down, it goes down, it goes up. But then when they have cash, as human beings, we look at that and there's no way we want to take as much risk. Or I use it like baby steps. Get your feet a little wet. Don't jump in to the S&P 500. Let's slowly go in over time. Maybe put 10 grand in over the next 12 months instead of throwing it all in today. Cash is different. We look at it differently. If something happens, cash is king, right? We want that. So it is interesting how we did look at that kind of different money, even though it's all a part of our net worth. And sometimes our 401ks are the biggest piece outside of real estate. When it comes to cash, we don't want to take as much risk.
What is something that everybody should be doing? Is that an IRA? Like everyone, I'm on the impression that everyone should be doing, like Danny behind the camera should be doing IRAs. And there's different levels of that. There's the Roths, there's personal, there's the business ones and all that stuff. Is that something that everybody should probably be putting money into?
Yes.
Just to start out with. Can you explain what an IRA is?
Well,
and the minimums and maximums for, what is it, like $7 grand or something like that, or is the max?
Yep. So basically, retirement, if you work at an employer and it's for profit, you've got a 401k at work. If it's not nonprofit, like you're a nurse, right, or a teacher, you've got a 403b. There's also IRAs. These are all fancy words for the same exact thing. Money that's going into an account before it's taxed. So if you look at a pay stub, you see your income, and then you see it going into your 401k. And then you see Medicare, federal tax, all the taxes,
FICA,
right?
all that kind of
all
stuff,
the stuff that pisses you off, right?
Yeah.
So it comes out
You're
before
like, what are these
you're
things?
taxed. So that's all, they're all fancy words for the exact same thing. The only thing that matters and that differentiates it is that it's pre-tax money. And that's what's important. So if you work for an employer, that's the number one thing I talk about. It doesn't benefit me if you don't invest with me, right? So if I'm telling you to invest elsewhere, I'm giving you good advice. Oh, well, I have to, right? I always have to put the client's needs first. So you invest there first. If you don't have an employer plan offered to you, then you do an IRA. You can't do as much in the IRA, which is the downfall.
There's limitations to IRAs.
So an IRA stands for Individual Retirement Account. It's Nick's retirement that has nothing to do with an employer. A 401k is the same thing as an IRA. It's pre-tax money. You can invest it all the same, basically. But your 401k is Nick with Johnson & Johnson 401k. Let's say you worked at a corporation, right? So if you leave Johnson & Johnson, that 401k can go into your IRA because it's all pre-tax money. That all can be commingled. So I have a lot of nurses. They go from hospital to hospital. So every time they leave, and remember I said nonprofits are called 403Bs, every time they leave, they can take that 403B, put it into their IRA. Take the next one, put it in their IRA, so that it's not, hanging out into the clouds. They don't know how it's invested. They move. Their old employer doesn't know they move. Now it's like, you're like a headless chicken trying to find all your old stuff. So that's basically the difference.
What's a basic description of a Roth IRA?
A Roth IRA, they are fantastic. There's a reason why. If you think about it, if you make over a certain amount of income, you can't do a Roth. So it's got to be good, right? If the IRS is limiting people who can contribute to it. A Roth IRA, the money is coming out of your pocket. You've already paid taxes on it. It's already hit your checking account. It's already, if you're looking at the pay stub, instead of before it coming out, it's coming out after your taxes, right? So if you've got a Roth and you contribute money to it, let's say you put up to 50 grand into it over a 10-year period, you fund it with 50,000. It's invested, let's say it grows to 150,000. you've got a $100,000 gain on it. When you pull out money and in your 60s, it is completely tax-free. There's no other vehicle aside from the 529 that you can pull out and it's tax-free. You don't owe the IRS anything on that $100,000 gain.
That's the one I was talking about. That has limitations, correct?
Yep.
With the Roth on, it's like, is it $6,900 a year?
65.
$6,500.
And every year it goes up by like $500 or so. So there's a limitation on contributions, but there's no limitation on Roth conversions. Not to confuse people, but if you've got...
Oh, there's a hack to the Roth.
If you've got an old 401k or, pre-tax IRA, a traditional IRA, and it's 60 grand, you can convert all 60 grand into a Roth. But that's taxable income that year.
Now, like the young, handsome man behind the cameras.
Taxable income that year?
Yep.
The young, handsome man behind the cameras right here, he should be doing Roth IRAs every single year as he's growing his business. And if he's smart as he's growing his business, he's not claiming as much because he's reinvesting into his business. So it's perfect. Roths are perfect for people who are just starting businesses. Before you're killing it, you start doing Roths. The other thing, now correct me if I'm wrong here, is I can pay my children. I can pay my children as employees of a business. So you have an LLC. Every realtor probably has an LLC. Every videographer, every loan officer probably has LLCs. And you can pay your children to do, and now they have to actually work. They can do menial office stuff for you. And you can pay your kids, I think it's up to like 13 or 14 grand a year. And then you can fund Roth IRAs for each one of those kids. So you pay them, boom, it goes into that. You can also pay them and then put it into 529s and other platforms and vehicles for their future selves. And if your business is doing well, you would be silly not to pay your kids instead of paying Uncle Sam. This is all above the table. This is all legal. There's nothing the IRS can do about it. We're not saying anything illegal here. And that's a thing that rich people do. And this is a thing where I feel as though people like loan officers and realtors and investors, videographers, business owners should really speak to someone like you to learn just those little hacks that I just said right there. All that stuff is very easy for you to handle. You and their accountant get together and you can handle that stuff instead of them forking over at the end of the year a bunch of money to the IRS.
Yes,
Fork it over to your
loophole.
kids and your futures for yourself and your kids.
I'm glad you brought that up because if they have earned income, you can do a Roth. And in the world of social media and us running so much business on there, I have a good amount of clients who are at the top of multi-level, maybe they sell things online,
Yeah,
right. They're
I
at the top
understand
and
what
there's
you're saying.
people,
I
there's
understand what
people
you're saying,
under
yeah.
them selling
Yeah,
it and
yeah.
all that.
Like they're almost like pyramid type things, but what are
Yes, but that's like a bad word.
There's a proper way to call it that.
Multi-level marketing.
Yes,
That's
okay.
what it is.
Yeah.
MLM.
Yeah.
Multi-level marketing. I have clients who
That's
put their kids.
a lot of the beauty products that women use.
Sure. Yep.
Rodan and Fields is one of those, right? And some other things.
Running pyramid schemes?
No,
So
it's not called that.
It's
man.
not a pyramid
called
scheme.
that.
Sorry, what did you guys call it again?
Multi-level marketing.
Yeah, multi-level
So
marketing. Sorry.
I know people
Lenders
at
are
the
not
top.
multi-marketing.
There's some people that
guys.
kill it in that game.
Oh,
kill it.
Yeah,
it.
guys I went to school
and
with
their
are crushing
kids.
it. It takes a long time, but they do crush it.
And
There's
their
some
kids
housewives that
are.
are killing the game in that.
Oh
stuff.
yes, and their kids are hired as their pictures are put up on social media all the time. So in a sense, they're models for that business, and then they
So
earn
that
income, and then they do Roth.
Damn sense.
For instance, my friend Ryan here, his sons are just gorgeous kids, right? They're like hair models, right? So he could have photos of these kids, and now that's the
So
employment.
I'm putting them up for the kindness of my own heart, my kids, and I could be hiring these guys.
They're
as
professional
employees.
hair models, these two kids.
I really
right?
could, yeah.
Yep.
So that's what I need to do.
Yes.
That's a loophole that I never
They
knew.
can help you with paperwork in the office.
Yeah,
stuff
they
like that.
destroy
Yes,
them.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just a side note, just this year it came out that you can take 529s, which are those traditionally college plans, and roll them into a Roth IRA for your kid if they don't use it for college. That just came out. If you hold it for 5 years.
Oh, nice.
You can put it into a Roth for your kid. Because 529 money, remember what I said, the IRS just cares about put all the pre-tax money in one, the post-tax it's got to be separate, right? So the 529, If you can roll that into a Roth for your kid, let's say they get a scholarship to college or you're not using it, a Roth, if you follow me here, if you hold a Roth IRA for 5 years, you can use it tax-free as a down payment on your first home. So you don't have to wait until you're 60 to use it, right? You don't have to wait until you're 59 and a half to use your Roth IRA. So now you're putting away money for your kid for college in a 529. If they don't use it, you're giving it to them for their first
They can
home,
buy their
in a
first
sense.
property.
If they hold the Roth for 5 years, you get the tax-free withdrawal.
I'll tell you what, that's something that wasn't in my tool belt that I wasn't.
The Roths?
No,
There's
I mean,
all sorts of
of
hacks
course,
for
listen,
Roths.
I know I have them myself, but for my clients, I never kind of expressed that. Like, hey, if you're taking 520, I go, well, I guess it's new this year, so it's brand new. So you take the 529s that a lot of people actually do know about and try to do right by their kids and start a 529 plan. But I didn't know that you can convert it into that Roth.
I went with whole life insurance policies for my kids, and I forget how much money each kid I put away a month. It all like tried to even everything out. But I did that because of the mentality that I have. What if they end up like me? What if they don't even like? I didn't even finish high school. I left. I went, got my GED, and went to the military. Or what if they end up like my wife? My wife has like 2 master's degrees. Well, I was like, with the way that college is going now, and the way that it's being rendered, you're seeing so many more people step away from college. You don't need to just go to college. Obviously certain jobs you have to, and that's a whole different conversation. But that's why I went with the whole life insurance policies, because of the 529 plans at the time. What if they didn't go to school? Then it's like, what am I squirreling this money away for them for? So I went with a different vessel. But now the 529s are they've eliminated
so
that
the problem with
hesitation
what?
for
The
guys
whole
like me.
life compared to the Roth, you would still have to surrender that whole life in order to use it and you're going to get taxed.
Well, they can borrow
on
again.
gains,
Kids
right?
can borrow against. The kids can borrow
It's a
against.
different
So
kind of
you're gonna
strategy.
cool.
Yeah. Kids can borrow against. It's like you put money in.
The kids will borrow against it. Okay, cool.
So say like one of my daughters wants to pay for a wedding, or they want to pay for their first house, or they want to pay for school. They borrow against it, and you pay that back. And from my understanding, it's cheaper than school loans to pay back the loans from
The interest.
the policies.
Yep. It's a different
And
strategy.
then if one of the
If
kids,
somebody didn't graduate high school, you know a lot about this.
I surround myself with experts.
No, you're right.
I
And it's
surround
smart.
myself with experts,
Look,
and I
this is
ask
stuff that I'm
experts the right
learning on the
question.
fly here. I know a lot of this stuff, but I lean on the professionals as well. Like lenders don't know everything, every ins and outs of finance. It's just not true. So this is interesting stuff that I know. Again, we always say, our craft is boring. It sure as hell not, because this is something every day that we use, and your whole life's work. You can mess up if you don't talk to the right people, which is insane.
You thought, Nick, what are we going to talk about? Like this stuff is boring that I do. If we go back and look at the film, right? There's been numerous times when my friend here, his eyes were like, "What?" And his body language, because it's things that he's in the financial world, right? Yeah. And it's things that he doesn't really know, right? So we're probably going to have a lot of questions from people on here, and please, write us with questions. Especially, we'll put up Betsy's contacts on at the end for you to contact her or any questions we have. And I'm guessing that we're going to have questions that people are going to hit us up, and then some of our friends are going to hit us up, and then we're probably going to have a whole other episode with you just based on people's questions because this is stuff that people just don't know. We were raised by people that weren't financially sound. Like if you were raised in Roxborough, Maniac, 95% chances your parents were not that financially savvy, right? And the 5% who are left the neighborhood long ago, right?
Yeah. And it's a part of the American dream to every generation wants the next generation to have more opportunity and to invest and make more money than the previous, right? So that's what we're trying to do. That's what our parents did. That's what our grandparents did. So the more knowledge, the better.
You have to make your money work for you.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to figure out a way to make money while you're asleep. Well, if we put money with someone like you who's a professional and is putting it into certain vessels, that is making you money while you're asleep, right? That is the key to financial freedom.
Well, speaking of, can you drop to the camera, please, your Instagram handle, your contact, like how people can get a hold of you, because people will be watching. I think the second episode with a Q&A on all this is great because, one, it takes away that embarrassing feeling that most clients would probably have to say like, oh man, I don't want to ask this question. It's embarrassing. We can feel those questions and get the real answer. So if you do have questions, please write us, email us, text us, drop it in. Betsy can answer anything. I'm assuming there's no stupid questions?
No stupid questions.
I ask stupid questions all the time. Please ask the dumb questions.
Yeah, ask the people I work with. About 1,000 a day. I ask. So,
Yep. So it's Betsy Madonna on Facebook. It's actually Elizabeth, but I usually just go by Betsy.
I had no idea your name was Elizabeth.
I know, nobody does.
I had no idea.
On purpose.
Really?
I tried to do that. I tried
Incognito.
to graduate college, and all of a sudden I was Elizabeth, and then people are like, people are going to remember you better, right? We all do. It's interesting, in a lot of our fields, we all do the same stuff. We all can sell the same stuff, like as an advisor, but people do business with you because they know, like, and trust you, but also because your brand. They got to remember you. Yeah. So that's my long story.
I texted our friend, and I'm like, I need Betsy's contact number. I want to have her on the show. But I put in your maiden name, and
yes, I know.
and you told me like everybody still calls me that. Nobody even knows my married name
Yes.
because I just knew you from when we were younger. I'm like, oh yeah. But it's
so now funny. You have all the listeners probably. I mean, I knew what your real name was, but that's something else. Can we get Elizabeth or Betsy to sing? Because I remember Betsy singing in church. Yeah, dude, she crushed it. I mean, come on, that's what you went to school for.
I was telling her earlier.
If everyone comes back on the Q&A session, we will get Betsy to sing.
Absolutely. Betsy's a phenomenal
singer. And I bet you this house
singer.
right here on 225 Northwestern has incredible acoustics. I bet you. I mean, a 6-bedroom, 7.5 bathroom. This place is awesome.
Yeah, this listing by Keith and Adams.
Keith Adams and the Adams Group. We wanted to thank you guys for allowing us to be in such a beautiful space. Betsy has gave all the contact information. Nick, do you have any other?
What's your email? Can people contact you directly by email?
Yep, elizabeth.madonna@stewardpartners.com. Steward with the W.
We'll have Danny put that up on the screen. Do you do business on Instagram or just personal? Do you want a phone number out there, or just email and Facebook is good for you?
Yeah, Facebook, Betsy Madonna of Madonna Money Management, and Instagram. We're so regulated advisors. We can only do certain things on social media, so I got to keep it tight. Just Facebook, email, and then my cell is actually how most people, not the office line, which is 215-760-9619. I still got a 215.
Yes, yeah.
That long distance Philly Delco. Yes. Come on, man. All the 215 knows the Great Wall Delco. But I guess what? I'll tell you what, we really appreciate the insight. It's awesome. Again, I told you I was going to learn a lot myself. I had 15 years in the industry. These are questions that you either avoid, don't lock into, and everybody should get on it, right? Because, like I said, it's day after tax day. There is some people.
I think the other thing that for the next episode we have you on, I really want to get into harvesting losses, where you can do with business owners and investors, where you can it's all legal above the board, and it's an interesting term, harvesting a loss to show for your taxes, which is great. And I think we should get into that on the next time you come, because I think we really need to have you back on and educate people a little bit more on what they should be doing with their finances.
I love it. I would love to.
This
Thanks
is some
for having
high-level
me.
stuff. Yeah, for Betsy, Elizabeth Madonna, Rafter, whatever you need to call her, she is your go-to for financial. She's your financial advisor. Again, for Madonna Money Management. Betsy Rafter, on behalf of Nick Cessna, Ryan Dolan, thanks for tuning in for another episode of the Atomic Real Estate Show, and we will catch you guys later. Check in the Q&A. Check in. This episode is brought to you by the Adams Group. The Adams Group is a longtime Philadelphia real estate team that helps buyers find the right home, investors find hidden opportunities, and the sellers maximize their price with their years of insight in Philadelphia and the surrounding suburbs. They've built their reputation on honest and client-forward work. You can connect with Keith Adams via phone at 215-605-1027. He's on Instagram at the Adams Group Market, and his website is adamsgroupcompass.com.
If you enjoyed our episode, please consider supporting the show by rating and reviewing the podcast. Also, check us out on Instagram at Atomic Real Estate Show to find out when new shows drop and to participate in our community Q&As. The Atomic Real Estate Show was brought to you by Direct Subs. Direct Subs is the #1 place for real estate investors to connect with local contractors for their flips, rentals, renovations, and new construction projects.